Welcome to Cinematic Recaps. This movie is called Candyman. The movie is about a skeptic graduate student who gets obsessed over a mythical story that accidentally got the Candyman back into the actual world. Candyman is a bloodthirsty character with a hook for a hand and is now back in town on a killing spree. Sit back and enjoy to see what happens. The film opens in 1977 with a little kid in the Cabrini Green projects being told by his mother to do laundry. He passes some police officers as he makes his way to the washing area. The youngster, who is by himself in the room, hears a man humming and then sees him emerge from a wall hole with a hook. The police rush inside as the boy screams. Present day, Cabrini Green has now become gentrified. Troy Cartwright is visiting Brianna and her partner Anthony McCoy in their new apartment with Grady Greenberg, Troy's lover. While there, they talk about the local legends, especially the one about Helen Lyle. Helen was a student who was hunting for information about what occurred in Cabrini Green. However, she apparently went insane and abducted a baby before a crowd rescued the child. Helen then stepped into a massive bonfire and died after being burned to death. Later, Anthony researches the subject Troy was discussing. The following day, Anthony runs into William Burke while out, who informs him that before more white people moved into the area, Cabrini Green didn't have such a heavy police presence. Burke tells Anthony about the neighborhood story of the terrifying Candyman. Burke, who played the young boy in the opening scene, first encountered Candyman when he was a child because he knew Sherman Fields, a local with a hook hand who gave candy to children. Sherman was the main suspect when a young white girl discovered a razor blade in her Halloween sweets. After Sherman shouted, Burke unintentionally allowed the police to find him. The cops then viciously beat Sherman to death until he was no longer recognizable. People didn't understand Sherman was innocent until it was too late when more razor blades later turned up in candy. According to a story, the Candyman will appear and take his prey if one looks in the mirror and repeats his name 5 times. A bee stings Anthony in his right hand as he is taking pictures nearby. Brianna's employer, a gallery, also hosts a display by Anthony, who is an artist. Visitors are challenged to look at their reflections in a mirror while saying Candyman's name 5 times as part of the exhibit. Anthony runs with critic Finley Stevens, who humiliates him and other artists for trying to express their opinions on society concerns in a direct manner. When a spectator asks him a disrespectful question, Anthony becomes enraged. He then snaps at Brianna's co-workers Clive Privler and Jerica Cooper. The former accuses Anthony of entering the gallery just because of Brianna, but Anthony manages to get in a jab at Clive before leaving. Anthony is comforted by Brianna at home. After the exhibition closes, Clive and Jerica attempt to make out. As they both face the mirror, Jerica jokingly pronounces Candyman 5 times. In the reflection, Candyman eventually appears and slices Jerica's throat after a little interval. Clive attempts to flee as Candyman approaches him from the shadows but is fatally wounded and his body is left next to Jerica. The following morning, Brianna discovers the death of Clive and Jerica. This brings back memories of when she was younger and saw her father fall out of the window to his death. When the news mentions that their deaths were discovered in front of Anthony's exhibit, he has a confused expression on his face before merely saying, to Brianna and Troy's disgust, "I'm glad I got featured." Anthony's hand has a bee sting that has become more rotten with time and needs bandaging. Later, he visits Finley's house for an interview where he shares his thoughts about gentrification both locally and generally. He challenges Finley to call Candyman by name. Anthony is dragged outside the apartment as she uses the restroom. There, he looks in the mirror and appears to see Candyman as a reflection of himself, with his hook exactly where Anthony's hand is. After Anthony has left, Finley is attacked in the restroom by the ghost of Candyman, who slashes her throat and drags her face across the window. Anthony begins to look into Candyman and Helen Lyle in more detail. He listens to Helen's recordings of what she observed and discovered while at Cabrini Green at the library. Anthony sees a piece of candy fall to the ground in the elevator, but he cuts his finger on it since it contains a razor blade. Before running away, the Candyman vision frightens him once more. Anthony returns to Burke, where he discusses how his artwork represents Candyman's victims as he sees them. According to Burke, Candyman is a symbol for many people who have experienced racial injustice, but the first instance can be traced back to the late 1800s, when a black man by the name of Daniel Robitaille worked as an artist for a white family, where he fell in love with the family's eldest daughter. Her father learned of her pregnancy and ordered a mob after Robitaille, who was then tortured, had his hand severed, had his body covered in honey to attract bees, and was eventually burned on fire. When Brianna views Anthony's drawings, she expresses worry about his mental health. Anthony breaks the mirrors when she tries to say Candyman's name, causing her to flee and stay with Troy and Grady. A group of young ladies at a prep school gather in the restroom to call out Candyman's name after one of them witnessed Anthony's exhibit at the gallery. One of them runs away before it is finished, while another female watches from a bathroom stall. The girls attempt to exit the restroom after nothing happens, but the door is locked. The other females can only hear the noises of Candyman's hook piercing her flesh as one of the girls returns to the mirror. The girl in the restroom can only see the hazy images of her classmates being killed through a reflection in a little mirror. Anthony visits his mother Anne-Marie despite the fact that his health and intellect are still failing. He begins to talk about Candyman and what he discovered regarding Cabrini Green. He understands that he is the child who was abducted many years ago, but Anne-Marie reveals that while she initially thought Helen had abducted him, she was actually protecting him from Candyman, who had reportedly chosen Anthony particularly for a sinister purpose. Anthony departs, believing that his mother misled him and withheld information. Burke captures both Anthony and Brianna just as they are about to make up. He leads them to a dilapidated church where he pretends to be in trouble while calling the police. Burke sees Candyman as a symbol of resistance to racial injustice and is aware that Anthony, whose body is already partially rotting, will soon replace Daniel Robitaille and Sherman Fields as the next Candyman. Anthony's right hand is sawed off by Burke, who then inserts the hook. Just as the police are about to arrive, Brianna manages to escape. Brianna kills Burke with a pen while he is pursuing her. Anthony is weak and stumbles into her arms. He was killed when the cops stormed the scene. Some dishonest police take Brianna into custody. The lead officer tries to persuade her to exaggerate the facts in order to either paint Anthony as the only person responsible for the killings or cast her as an accessory. Knowing what the police are up to, Brianna offers to gaze in the mirror in exchange for saying whatever the officers ask her to say. And police with his neck cut exits from the building as she calls Candyman. Anthony is now the Candyman's ghost, and he starts killing the other officers. Anthony goes out after the driving officer. Brianna gets out of the car and sees Anthony murder the police officer. Anthony becomes Robitaille after being consumed by a swarm of bees. Robitaille asks Brianna to tell everyone as more police officers begin to show up. And this is the end of this movie. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for weekly updates of movie recaps like this. Comment what movie you want next. Thanks for watching.